Okay, welcome everyone who's joining us in person or virtually to our council meeting for July the 28th. We'll get started, and first thing, of course, we need to do is adopt the agenda. I have a recommendation here that the agenda for the July 28th, 2025 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed with the following amendments. Number one, include correspondence from Gail Donald regarding historical facades. Include correspondence from Daphne Ripard regarding historical facades. Include correspondence from Linda Huska regarding historical facades, and remove the county council update from tonight's agenda as Steve O'Neill can't be with us to provide that. So I move in a seconder for that, Councillor Burke and Councillor McCabe. Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. We'll go around the table asking for disclosure of any pecuniary interest on anything on tonight's agenda. I have nothing to declare. Councillor.
I have nothing to declare on the council meeting, but I do on the public meeting.
For that.
Okay.
Councillor McCabe?
I have none.
Councillor Hearn?
Yes, 4A, the check register.
Okay. Councillor Rankin?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. So we're skipping over the county council updates. So we just launched into the meeting, but now we're going to recess from it to deal with the public meeting. So Canada, of course. I'm jumping the gun. So please join us for Canada and rise. Thanks, everyone. I was reminded the image of the spheroid water tower in Arthur, and you know that they're kind of an oddity in southern Ontario. You don't see them very often, but I took a trip in early July through the Midwestern US, and they're dotted everywhere there. They're a very popular water tower through Illinois and Iowa. It's interesting how those things go. Anyway, let's recess from our council meeting to move into the meeting under the Planning Act. I have a recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the July 28th, 2025 regular meeting of council at 7:04 p.m. for the purpose of holding meetings under the Planning Act. Could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Hearn and Councillor Rankin, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. So we'll switch to the public meeting for some zoning bylaw amendments. And I will call the public meeting to order and ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest with regard to the two zoning bylaw applications, ZBA 03/25 for Sarah Properties Limited and ZBA 08/25 for Karen Cannonmeyer. Councillor Burke.
Yes, I have an indirect pecuniary interest with ZBA 0825. My employer has worked on parts of this application.
Abe?
I have none.
I have none to declare. Councillor Hearn?
No.
Councillor Rankin?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. So we'll first move into the 03/25 Sarah Properties application. The land subject to proposed zoning amendment, official plan amendment, and draft plan of subdivision is legally described as part of Lot 1, Concession 1, Geographic Township of West Luther, now in the Township of Wellington North, and municipally described as 211 Eliza Street and 8014 Wellington Road 109. The subject property has a total area of 18.4 hectares. Purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment will rezone the lands from residential R1C zone, future development, highway, from residential R1C zone, future development and highway commercial and natural environment to residential R1C, residential site specific R3, highway commercial site specific HC, and open space OS to permit 155 single detached units, 13 to 25 townhouse units, 44 bungalow townhouse units, medium density residential block, commercial block, park block, and internal roads. How was notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the property and to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on July 4th, 2025.
Great, thank you. Zach, can you give us a rundown on this one? There's a lot going on here.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through the mayor, the purpose of this application and this report is to facilitate a public meeting required under the Planning Act for the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. These applications would facilitate a draft plan of subdivision on the properties, which has also been submitted. So 3 applications have been submitted to the township and county. The property is located at 211 Eliza Street and 8014 Wellington County Road 109, which gives the development frontage and access on 2 roads. The lands are currently designated future development generally, and the official plan amendment would convert these lands to residential, along with modifying the greenlands and existing highway commercial designation. So expanding that highway commercial designation and basically converting the remainder of the lands to residential. The draft plan includes a mix of singles and townhouses as described. It also includes a commercial block and a high density block, park block. The proposed zoning would align with these blocks under the draft plan. The zoning also seeks a number of site specific requirements. There's a few charts in our report which can outlines those specific requests and proposed relief. The applicant has submitted a number of technical studies which have been reviewed by agencies and staff. Comments have been received and have been included in this report too. Just a note on the official plan amendment, these lands were included in OPA 123, which has been approved by County Council and is on the minister's desk for approval. So subject to that amendment being approved, these lands wouldn't require the official plan amendment, but the applicant has chosen to proceed and submitted the official plan amendment now as well. So a number of the comments that have been received are technical in nature. They will need to be addressed by the applicant. Some of these comments will be addressed through conditions of draft approval, some through additional information, or some through revisions to the plans and studies. So kind of the next steps following the public meeting, staff will review the comments and responses to comments with the applicant, and then work towards preparing some recommendation reports to council.
Thank you. The bylaw regarding this application will be considered at a future regular council meeting. Persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must submit a written request. And with that, I will open the floor for questions or comments from the applicant and or the public. Anyone here wishes to speak to this application? Yes, if you could join us up here at the podium, please. Push the green light on.
Okay, perfect.
It's your name,
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Brandon Flewelling. I'm a planning consultant with GSP Group, and I'm here on behalf of Sarah Properties. I've got just a brief presentation, kind of walk through. Zach hit the highlights, and I get to show the pictures. So, really, we're here to talk about the draft plan of subdivision application, the zone change, and the potential official plan amendment, depending on the timing. But really, the purpose of tonight is to hear comments. We've been working with staff to review the comments as well as comments that we've got from the Conservation Authority and others. So the next step is really to take away the information from tonight, work on addressing those comments, and then come back hopefully with a positive staff report. So we can just jump ahead to the next slide. I think everyone's aware of where the subject property is located. It's in the south end of Arthur, on the north side of County Road 109 and west of Eliza Street. So we'll just jump to the next one, which is the maybe the most important slide of my presentation, is really just a look at the draft plan and what is proposed. So starting from the left side, or generally the west of the property, you can see access to Eliza Street. There's a medium density residential block, which is identified in the staff report for up to 130 units proposed within 2 6-story apartment buildings. That's going to take some refinement and subject to a future site plan approval, but that's the amount of density that's been allocated or looked at for that block. Traveling across the page or to the right, you can see a new local road fabric that has a connection to the north to the East Ridge Landing subdivision. And then on the very right side of the page, you'll see a local street connection down to 109. Mixed throughout the plan in the various shades of light yellow, I'll call them, are the single detached residential or townhouse residential lots that are proposed. So a mix of units throughout the subdivision. There are some green spaces on the west side as you enter into the subdivision, as well as on the far east side or the right side of the page, adjacent to the river, that are proposed, as well as a 0.5 hectare park block. So again, there's a mix of uses. There's a park block proposed. The draft plan proposes some pedestrian connections from a sort of north-south throughout the site between the blocks, so that you can get through and around as a pedestrian. The very bottom middle in the blue color is the proposed commercial block with frontage on 109. My next slide, we'll look at the sort of preliminary concept plan for that. But just to give you the lay of the land, this is the draft plan as currently proposed, and it's the street fabric that has been submitted and looked at from an engineering perspective and so on. On this version of the plan, we've removed the individual lot lines for the size of any townhouse or single detached lots. And that's really, as we work through the process, we want to make sure there's some flexibility that's maintained, really to respond to market conditions and ensure that the ultimate subdivision plan that gets approved is going to be able to meet the needs of the community and the market demand. So for the purposes of this current plan, we're looking at lotless blocks, but would certainly work with staff and ensure that the total number of units and all of those details were known and agreed to before anything gets finally approved. The next slide, please. This is the preliminary conceptual layout of the commercial block. So again, County Road 109 is along the bottom of the page. It's a somewhat typical commercial block layout. There's sort of buildings proposed along the east and the north, with maybe a freestanding pad sort of in the middle along the south of the property or closer to 109. Again, the final details aren't known, but in order to inform the zoning bylaw, we wanted to ensure we come up with a concept plan that fits and can function from a traffic perspective, from a parking perspective, and all of those types of things. So that is the genesis of the preliminary site plan that's in front of you. There are 2 street connections proposed to 109 from the commercial block, as well as a pedestrian connection to the residential block to the north. The reason, one of the comments in the package that we've received is that, could there be a vehicular access from the subdivision into the commercial block? And we've looked at it, but really just from a grading perspective, it's too tough to accommodate. It's the site really travels up from 109 into the property. You're kind of building a commercial block into the side of the hill. So we could make a pedestrian connection work, but a street connection directly into the commercial block hasn't been deemed to be feasible at this point in time. As far as the actual commercial uses, there is a request for some site-specific list of permitted uses for the commercial block, and that's to sort of provide additional uses than you might just find in the highway commercial zone. So additional uses like a bake shop, medical clinic, neighborhood store, retail food store, retail store. In addition to some others have been requested for additional permitted uses on this property. And that's really just to allow a broader range of commercial uses that you might see in this form of development. So those uses and that zoning, again, is submitted and staff is reviewing that. So we'll work with them on those requests. Next slide, please. As Zach said, there's some site-specific residential zoning that's requested. On the high level, we're looking at some, I would say, sort of more contemporary setbacks, things like 4.5 meter front yard setback to the face of the home. The driveway or the garage would still have to be, the minimum 6 meters, but that just allows a little more flexibility on the site. A minimum exterior side yard of 4 meters, a rear yard of 7.5 meters versus 7.6. A bit more lot coverage up to 50%. These are things that we're finding in other subdivisions that really allow for a more efficient use of the property and a bit more flexibility in home design and placement on the lots and that type of thing. So again, these requests are with staff for review. Similarly, you'll see I've noted cluster townhouse residential, so a parking ratio of 1.25 spaces per unit, as well as a reduced setback of parking towards the property line. And then a similar parking ratio for the apartment block. Again, based on what we're finding in other projects and other developments, what is a reasonable amount and typically required by the marketplace, but that builders want to build. So high level, that's what the zoning looks like from a residential perspective. On the next screen, again, I've sort of touched on this, is the proposed commercial zoning, introducing a few more additional uses to the highway commercial zone than maybe more than permitted in the base zoning bylaw. If we could jump ahead, even to the next screen after this one. So in support of all of this, and as Zach noted, we've submitted a number of background reports and documents. So planning report, environmental impact study, functional servicing report, stormwater management, hydrogeological, geotechnical, archaeological, environmental impact assessment or site assessment. So a lot of homework has gone into getting us to where we are today and presenting this material at the public meeting. And as I said, we are actively working on responding to comments that have been received from whether it's the township or the county or the conservation authority or others. So we're working on that now, and really we'll take any comments we hear tonight back as additional items to respond to. Jumping to the next slide. Again, the next steps is that we'll receive the comments tonight. We'll work on revisions and a resubmission of the materials as appropriate or as required to address any comments that we've heard. And then hopefully return back here with a staff recommendation, hopefully a positive recommendation at that time. And then on to, moving forward with the development. So I'll pause it there for any questions. I've included my contact information for anybody who might be online or looking to connect with me directly in the future, or always through county township staff, then we'll respond to comments that way as well. So hope that clarifies sort of the application in front of you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. All questions from council for
Okay.
that meeting, see if anybody else wishes to speak to this application.
Yep. Sounds good. Thank you.
I see that there are 2 attendees with your hands raised, Tricia and Lauren. I'm presuming you want to ask questions at the public meeting, so I will move you into the meeting.
Anyone else here in the chamber wish to speak to this application?
So Patricia has declined to be included in the meeting. And Lauren will be joining.
Welcome.
Hi there. Are you able to hear me?
And yes, if you could just give us your name and address, please.
Yep.
And the floor is yours. You can make any comments or questions you have in mind.
Yeah, of course. My name is Lauren Campbell. You'll probably see as part of your public meeting agenda that I had already sent in an email with some comments. I live on 18 Eastview Drive, so the proposed subdivision is essentially in my backyard. I did have a couple of prepared questions, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak and taking my feedback ahead of the meeting. One point that I just was wondering if the person who just had the mic could clarify on. I'm seeing a little bit of a mixed messaging on the proposed development when it comes to the apartment complex. So based on the public meeting agenda, it was proposed to move it from a 3-story to a 6-story. I believe in the 2025 planning justification report, it identified a 6-story, but then the transportation impact study said it would be a 3-story. So there's a little bit of a shift there on the density that I'm seeing a bit of a mixed message on.
Did you have any further questions in regard to this Brandon can answer?
I don't think that in particular. I certainly have some comments, but I don't know if it's necessarily that he would need to have feedback on them.
Okay, well, maybe get him to come back to the podium and address that, and then we can move on to your comments.
Certainly to clarify, and thank you for the question, the proposal is for a request for up to 6 stories. The traffic impact study, I don't have it in front of me, likely looked at the total number of units, but didn't capture the request for additional height. So the request is for up to 6 stories.
Okay, and I apologize while I have you at the podium, I'm rereading my questions and I do have one more for you. Could you confirm if Wellington Catholic District School Board was also consulted in reference to the subdivision? I saw that there was letters from Upper Grand, but I didn't see anything from the Catholic School Board who would be impacted as well.
I'll get Zach or Leonard to respond to that.
Thanks, Lauren. Zach Prince, planner of the County of Wellington. The Wellington Catholic School Board was circulated. Often they don't provide formal comments if they don't have concerns, and so far we haven't received anything from them.
Okay, perfect. I was surprised that there weren't any red flags, and I just wanted to double check that both school boards were reached out to, so that's great. So yeah, for me, and thank you for the clarity on the 6-story versus the 3-story, I would say that is largely my main concern. I wanted to voice my opposition to granting an exception for the reduced lot sizes in the proposed subdivision. I certainly understand the need to allow for growth, but we also have a responsibility to protect the character and livability of our community. In my opinion, approving smaller lot sizes may benefit the developer by squeezing in more homes, or in this case, taller apartment buildings, but it does so at the expense of the long-term residents and the future homeowners. To me, it feels a bit like adding more seats to an airplane. It might increase the profit, but it doesn't necessarily improve the experience of those who are on board. I had a look today at Cache Homes. If you're familiar, they're the subdivision that's across from Musashi. They have similar lot sizes to what is being proposed for the townhouses and the detached houses in this subdivision. And currently, so again, they're right across the street from a major employer in Arthur with Musashi, and there are 16 homes that are currently listed as of today, from what I can see on realtor.ca. So from my opinion, if homes on these smaller lots aren't selling, even in a prime location, that is a red flag. It suggests that the market isn't demanding this kind of higher density product, and we risk approving something that doesn't meet our local needs necessarily. I did see that there was also some flags of concern when I was looking at the public meeting agenda with the 6 density, so I'm not alone in that concern. And then another thing that I had noticed as well when I was looking at the revisions was that there's an increasing in density, but a decreasing in parking. So I did notice on the PowerPoint that there was a comment there about requesting permit parking within 1 meter of the property line. And while that is somewhat of a solution, I also have concerns with how that impacts the taxpayers with snow removal and getting around vehicles. I know I can't park in front of my home in the wintertime, and in our driveway, that can be tricky as well. So it just seems like reducing the parking rate is going to cause more issues in the long term. Along the lines of parking concerns, I did notice on the commercial zone that the barrier-free parking spaces have been significantly reduced. The proposed is only going to have 4 as opposed to the 15 permitted, and I think that that sets up a lot of DEI concerns when it comes to inclusivity and being able to access those businesses. We want to be in there. We want to be thriving. Reviewing. The only other comment that I had, which was included in my email, which was in the agenda package as well, was I noticed there was a traffic study, and there's a lot of commentary that's been on the access points on Eliza Street and 109. A major concern that I also have is the intersection of 109 and 6. It is currently a very busy spot. If you've ever gone there on a long weekend or even 5 o'clock during the week, I find it very difficult to turn left. And while there are left turning lanes, there are no advanced signals. So I think if we add the type of density that's being proposed without addressing that issue, we're going to have more safety concerns at that intersection. And I think that about sums it up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lauren, for your questions and comments. Anyone else registered to speak on?
No, we don't.
Okay, so we'll turn it over to council members. Any questions or comments from council members?
Yes. Thank you for the presentation. My number one concern is the reduction on almost every variable with regards to side yard, rear yard, lot coverage, maximum. Says to me that you're not really building for the site. If you have to request a reduction for everything that's permitted, I don't think that you're taking our policies seriously. We had a lengthy conversation at the last council meeting about front yard minimums. So I'd like to stick with what is permitted on this application. So that's my first comment. My second comment would be with regards to access on to 109. Is that going to be two-way access, or is it going to be one is for in and one is for out? And I'm wondering if you could answer that question for me, Brandon, please.
Certainly, through Mr. Mayor, access would be both two-way at each driveway.
Okay, so I do have a concern that may complicate things at that intersection, as Lauren has suggested. And I also wonder if this going to be a phase in project, and if it was to move forward, and what is the time frame?
Certainly, again, through you, Mr. Mayor, the draft plan would certainly be phased. The exact phasing limits haven't been determined. There's quite a bit of interest in the commercial block, so there's a quite likely scenario that it might be the first phase, subject to servicing and grading as required to get the services there. But that hasn't been determined yet. But there has been quite a bit of interest in the commercial component.
And then just a couple of other comments that I had. Noticing that somebody had commented based on accommodation for schools. With a large development like this, that students may be bused out of the area. That's something that we have to be taken into consideration. And also sewage allocation at this time. And I would think that we've got lots of other developers that are looking for sewage allocation as well. And this is also a large development.
Councilor McKay, do you have some-
Yeah, thank you, and through you, Mayor. Yes, I have concerns with the every variable that's needing to be changed here. And one of my other concerns was with the allotments. I don't know if we have that kind of space in our current wastewater treatment plant as it sits today.
This is one of the properties we identified for phase two.
Okay.
Correct, of the expansion. I'm not sure about the number of units relative to what we anticipated previously. Can you remind me about that, Darren, where what we tentatively allocated to that property?
Through you, Mayor Lennox. There's been no allocations for this property, but it was very much a consideration through the community growth plan and OPA 123 that phase two would accommodate this site.
But we didn't get down to specifics about number of units.
That's right. Based off the original draft plan that we seen, or the concept numbers, and it's generally within that range.
And this is one of the properties that we identified when we were talking about the most recent iteration of the financing plan for the wastewater treatment update as well. Do you have something further, Councilor McKay?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I do. It's on the other page. That's why I missed it. So my other concern is the proposal of up to six-story buildings. This is rural Ontario. We want to try and keep true to our communities, and I know at some point that may have to happen. I hope not anytime soon, not just because I don't like the fact that it's going to change the characteristics of Arthur, but I'm also concerned about fire service protection with this up to six-story building. We don't have the equipment to accommodate that. I know that we have mutual aid agreements, but I find that concerning.
Back to you, Councilor McKay.
All my thunder is taken now. I just want to talk about that as well, just with the reach that the Minto fire truck has. I think it's 7 stories, but might take a little while for it to get here. And that is also a concern of mine as well. So I don't know if Chief is there. Did someone say?
Police is
Oh,
on.
police, sorry.
Yeah.
Police, do you have any comment to build on this?
Yeah, basically what you guys are saying. Currently, we don't have an aerial in Wellington North, but we do have access to one in Minto and Dundalk. So.
Okay. Thanks, Khalees. Councilor McCabe, I think maybe has a follow-up.
Yeah, and through you, thank you, Mayor. Khalees, does it have a 7-story reach? Is that right? The one at Minto?
I think so. I would have to check. We go by feet, and I'm not 100% full on that.
Okay.
But
okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, comments from this side of the table? Councilor Hearn?
Well, I think Councillor Burke and Councillor McCabe have covered a lot of it. I do have concerns with all everything being asked for a variance for everything, and I did have a lot of concerns. I still do about fire service. I'm largely supportive of apartment buildings, but it seems, well, even if our fire trucks or ladders can reach, this is an awful lot for a volunteer fire department to handle. So that is a huge concern. And honestly, it just seems like a logistical nightmare being on 109, coming back from Orangeville on a Friday. You can already sit at that light for, like, I don't know, 20 minutes sometimes, I swear. But so I don't know how that's going to work. And that's not a question, but I think it's something we're going to need to address.
Councilor Rankin?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox. Thank you very much for your report as well. But I have quite a few concerns. I'll start with the apartment building. You had said that in your strategic direction number 1, you said that your standards while maintaining the township's small town charm. And I don't think 6 stories could be considered small town charm. I'm also considered not only the fire regulations, I'm concerned about that as well, but the parking is another thing. You only want 1.25 spaces per unit. If you have 130 units, if you get the 6 stories, that will work out to 162.5 parking spots. You have 130 units with a possibility of 260 cars. Where would you park the other vehicles? If you are expecting them just to sit in the streets of the residential area, and then you have the snow bylaw in the wintertime, I'm not really in favor for 1.5 spots. So I'm sorry, I'm definitely not in favor of 1.25 spots for your parking for that. And I would like to see it go back to 3 stories as well. Another concern I had was when I was reading it, I thought you were talking about one driveway in off 109 and that it had to go up through to the subdivision. But you were just saying now that that's not going to happen, that it was only going to be a walking access from the commercial to the residential. Because I had concerns with people in the morning saying, oh, well, am I going to go out of the subdivision, out and around and down to the light and around, or am I going to just skip through and go down that one exit onto 109 to make a left turn? So I had concerns for the traffic for that. But if you had said that that's only going to be a walking way now and not a driveway, I'm just wondering how the residents would feel about not being able to drive from their home to the commercial rather than just having to walk. Another one was the school as well, being bused. The school board wants a sign posted saying that the children may be bused to another location. So I was just trying to imagine what would be the nearest high school to Wellington North that they would be bused to.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, those types of decisions, the school board would ultimately decide where the capacity would exist. If it is a pretty standard condition that they have that clause in the draft plan to provide for the flexibility should one school become overcrowded. So I wouldn't want to speculate on their behalf what that could look like in the future when everything's built out and where they might do that allocation. But the actual comment is a fairly standard one that we see from school boards advising that, just because you live close to a school, it's not automatically guaranteed that new development goes to that school.
Favor of a lot of busing going, with having so many residents there and the possibility of a lot of children. School. And all the variances as well. I am not in favor of the variances that you would like. I think they're too drastic, and I would like to stick more to the bylaw that we have in place now. Also, the 50%, I'm sorry, I can't support that for your detached dwellings. That's far too much, I think. And in Grand River Conservation, they have a lot of concerns as well, and I'm in agreement with them to defer this for now. And the catchment basements with the and sewer allocations, I think that's basically it for now. There's a lot there. I'm sorry that I think it's just too much for that area. Okay.
Okay. Any others, Councilor McCabe?
Yeah, sorry, just Councillor Rankin just kind of jarred my memory a little bit. There was no easement, I don't think, for Wellington North Power either in this plan, so that's got to be addressed as well.
Okay. Any other? I have a few myself. I was actually a little puzzled when I saw the application about the number of variances requested. There's very little specificity of whether this is the intention on all lots or whether this is to accommodate those unique situations, because it almost feels to me like, let's put as many variances in here, run them up the flagpole and see if anybody salutes. And I'm not sure that I think that's really that productive. I mean, we have a zoning bylaw that has provisions in it that we believe are appropriate for our community. And the degree of variances to me are quite puzzling. I mean, I'm quite willing to work in terms of variance on something like a corner lot that needs some additional variance to accommodate space. But, you know, even as I think it was Councillor Burke mentioned, the front yard setback. I mean, we pushed a number of developments in Arthur back to 6 meters. And in the most recent subdivision this past winter, we struggled with snow storage, even at 6 meters. So for me, that's a hard no. Some of the other stuff, I mean, is this every lot that needs all these variances? Is this one lot in the block? What is this? I mean, I'm really not getting a sense of this other than, you know, is this just a method to measure the amount of pushback you're going to get?
Yeah, if I may respond to that, just in high level, certainly appreciate the comments and the context. And you've got the lived experience in the community as to what's worked and what hasn't. We brought these requests forward from what we've seen in other developments in other communities, what a lot of builders are asking for. But certainly I've heard the comments loud and clear, and that's the beauty of the public meeting is to hear these comments and then go back and reassess what is required or what is the most beneficial to a future builder to consider. So I would say I've been taking notes, and I've heard the comments about the zoning request. Overall, it is requested on the entirety of the lands for the residential development. But if that's not going to work, then we've heard some comments pretty loud and clear about that, and we'll take that back and reconsider.
And I guess the other thing that I'd like to, and this has come to my attention recently with some more recent developments we've had in our community, where we've granted a number of variances on what are relatively large lots. And we're ending up with a housing type that is large square footage. And what we really need in our community is, you know, if we're approving higher density housing, is to get the price point of that housing down. So that people in modest or middle incomes can afford to get into the housing market. We don't have public transit here. We're not likely to have a significant amount of public transit anytime soon. So cars are the way people get around, or bicycles or walking. Ultimately, active transportation is ideal, but people do need to get to work. So I think that creates a challenge with the parking issue. If we had transit, I would be far more amenable to looking at more flexibility, if I'll put it that way, with regard to parking, but we don't. And the reality is we're not likely to have. So I guess if some of these variances are necessary to make your project work, I'd also like to see some consideration given to how can we create housing that over a longer term period of time will remain affordable for middle income peoples in our community. Our median income is not what it is in Brampton or Mississauga. We need to have housing that people who work in our communities can live in. If all we're doing is transplanting people from Brampton to Arthur to drive 109, I agree with many of the comments my colleagues have made around traffic, and I don't think that's really productive for our community. So I guess I just ask that you give consideration to some of those things as this project proceeds. I understand we're at a preliminary stage and there's more work to be done, but I hope you do hear those messages and give them due consideration.
Certainly, I appreciate the comments, and part of what I sort of opened up with was the plan is laid out right now. The version I put on the screen, we've removed the lot lines, and that's to look at ensuring there's that flexibility to get the right housing that this market is demanding. So not setting it in stone right at this point in time while we work through the comments and so on. So certainly want to acknowledge your comments and know that they've been heard. One little thing I just want to get off from the member of the public who spoke earlier and commented on the reduction in barrier-free parking spaces on the commercial block. That's not something we're seeking. The site plan just doesn't have enough for the total amount. It's just a conceptual site plan, but by no means are we looking to reduce the standard requirement for barrier-free parking spaces. So just wanted to clarify that element as well. But thank you for the comments, and certainly look forward to moving forward on this one.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox. Just something I had thought, I forgot to bring it up just now. All these residences are going to be almost cat-a-quarter to Walker Industries, and they do a great job of trying to mitigate the odors and listening to the residents. But with the wind, you're not that far away from them. And I'm just wondering how beneficial it is to the people that are going to be living there to have to deal with that.
It's a known entity in the community. The lands that are proposed to be developed are within the settlement boundaries for the community. So it's an area that the township is directing growth. But certainly I hear your comment, but there's not much that can be done on the residential development side to mitigate for other offsite issues. So.
Further? Okay. So maybe you, Brandon, and Zach, I'm not sure who to direct this one to, but what's the next step in this process? Like, are we going to see this come back with some more refinement at some point before we get to the bylaw stage, or where are we at here?
Through the chair, I expect the first thing that we'll deal with is the OPA, which is kind of dealing with this at a high level. Regarding the draft plan, there's definitely, based on the comments that we've heard today and comments that we've received from agencies, there'll be some back and forth with the applicant that may include revising the plan. In which case there maybe will need to be another recirculation, more comments, that sort of thing. So it is a fairly iterative process that we're in right now, and it can be kind of as long as that takes to address some of these comments. And then we may split the subdivision of the zonings and come back later with the zoning, or we may try to address them at the same time. We'll try to evaluate that at that point in time.
Thank you. I just had one more question. I just thought the apartment units you're planning, are they all one bedroom, or are some of them 2 bedrooms?
Through the mayor, it's anticipated that there'd be a mix. There's no detailed plans at this point in time, but it is anticipated there'd be a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms at least.
I was just thinking because of the number of parking spaces, when you're increasing a possibly another driver if you have 2 bedrooms.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, where am I? I think I'm done with that one, as we're on to the next application, right? Okay. So we'll move on to our next application. This is zoning bylaw amendment 08/25 for Karen Kammermeyer. The land subject to proposed zoning amendment is described as concession 2, part lot 11, with a civic address of 8449 line 2, Arthur. The subject property is approximately 36.2 hectares. The purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the portion of the subject lands from agricultural A zone to site-specific agricultural A2 zone. This application is seeking to rezone the retained agricultural portion of the property to prohibit future residential development. This rezoning is a condition of the severance application B19/24 that was granted provisional approval by the Wellington County Land Division Committee. Consent will sever 1 hectare rural residential parcel with an existing dwelling. A 35.2 hectare vacant agricultural parcel will be retained. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. And over to you, Karen. How were notices given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters and as well sent to applicable agencies. Signage was posted on July 2nd, 2025.
Okay, thank you. Zach?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through Mayor Lennox. As noted, this report is to facilitate a public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment to restrict residential development on the retained parcel. The consent application was approved by the committee in January 2025. There was some back and forth that the consent was deferred previously. The consent number is 1924. The property is located at 8449 Line 2 Arthur. And as noted, the final size of the severed parcel is 1 hectare. We also have attached a bylaw for council's consideration, should you choose to approve the bylaw at that point.
We have a letter dated, we have a letter from the Grand River Conservation Authority. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Nothing that isn't included on the agenda.
Great, thank you. So the bylaw for this will be considered at the regular council meeting, so immediately following this public meeting. Any persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must submit a written request. And with that, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments from the applicant and or the public. Anyone wish to speak to it? We don't have anyone registered to speak
No,
to
we
this?
don't. No.
Okay, so we'll move right to questions or comments from council.
I have none.
Councillor Rankin?
Through your Mayor Lennox, I was just wondering, it says that the frontage isn't large enough. They want a variance. It should be 100 feet and it's only 88 point something feet. I'm just wondering why the odd shape, if it can't be made a little more normal shape, is a little more rectangular or square. And why it has to be such a large area of 2.5 acres. I think we've talked before about reducing the amount of acreage for severances such as this. Could it not be a half acre or 1 at the most? And then you still have about 1.5 or 2 acres that can be used for prime farmland.
I'll tackle this one first, Darren. This has come before council before, and we've made recommendations to the County Land Division Committee around reducing the footprint and trying to make the shape more regular. And this is what Land Division has approved. Whether it is consistent with our recommendations or not is up to your interpretation. But I think what we're faced with today is the rezoning of the agricultural parcel because Land Division has the authority to make that decision on the severance. And it's up to us to decide whether we're going to rezone the agricultural portion to allow this to proceed. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Darren? Any other questions, Councillor Hearn?
Yes, I don't agree, or I agree with the rezoning. But again, I'm still upset that we had requested that it be under 2 acres. And again, the odd shape, the provincial policy statement does state that it should render the remaining farmland, it should not render it inefficient to farm. And it seems that it does, but there is nothing I don't think I can do about that. So there, said my piece.
Okay, any other further comments on this application? Okay, if there's nothing further, we'll adjourn the public meeting. And we have a recommendation that the public meeting of July 28th, 2025 be adjourned at 7:53 p.m. Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hearn. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll go back to our regular council meeting. And we have a recommendation to resume our regular council meeting, which is as follows. That the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the July 28th, 2025 regular meeting of council at 7:54 p.m. Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll jump right to the passage of the bylaw coming out of the public meeting. So we have a recommendation that bylaw number 45-2025 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 66-01 being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Wellington North be read and passed. And this is in regard to West Luther Concession 2, Part Lot 11 with a civic address of 8449 Line 2, Arthur, for Karen Kammermeyer. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor McCabe. Mayor Lennox? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next up, we have our deputation.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Trina Reed. I'm a business owner in Mount Forest on Main Street and a citizen for about 48 years now. So I'm here this evening to speak on behalf of some residents of Mount Forest and business owners. And I believe you have some letters of support, and it's in regard to commercial buildings downtown Wellington North, so Mount Forest and Arthur, historical buildings and their facade. So I'm just going to read off a paper. So I'm speaking today out of a love and concern for our extremely beautiful and growing downtown areas of Wellington North. As a business owner in Wellington County for over 30 years and a resident for over 48, I have observed many changes and I'm hopeful for the potential of the future of Wellington North. In Mount Forest, most of our buildings in the downtown were established in the late 1800s and have a unique aesthetic as well as a structural resiliency. This is something we absolutely need to preserve. I wanted to note that when Your Town Rising came to do the tours in the downtown, that was something that they commented on, was particularly in Mount Forest, the unique structure that we had with the California brick and such as well. And they had mentioned that it was something that we should try and preserve. I'm hopeful that the township would adopt a bylaw or at least look into maybe considering a bylaw that would protect the facade and commercial building frontage in our downtowns. In doing so, I believe this would allow the municipality to have the ability to inspect, control, and be advisors over their very important throughways on Highway 6 and keep the downtowns consistent and thriving. This bylaw, I believe, would help curb the commercial owners from making changes to the buildings that would challenge their structural integrity and have short and long-term environmental negative impacts, as well as streamlining our downtown core in order to provide a more inviting area for people to shop, to visit, and to work. Some of the alternative enhancements to our buildings may have ongoing structural risk. I'm not pointing out any buildings in particular, but I think if you drive or walk up and down Mount Forest or Arthur, you may know some of the buildings that might be highlighted. Brick is porous and modifications often cause the brick to degrade. In addition, once modified, it is almost impossible to remove without degrading the original structure as it traps moisture in the mortar. So in walking up and down Main Street last week, we were looking at some of these buildings where the paint had went on some, in particular, the California brick, and as little as 2 years ago, and it's starting to come away from the buildings. With it, it's bringing more mortar out, and you can see visible holes in some of these big historical buildings downtown, some of which, actually all of which, have residences upstairs as well. Currently, there is not a bylaw to protect these buildings and should be, in my opinion. It will lead to increased property values and a more vibrant business environment, something I think we can all agree that we're looking to move forward on. This also allows the municipality to identify problems early on as well as potential hazards for the buildings downtown. Building facade bylaws are a valuable tool for municipalities to protect their communities' character, economic health, and safety. Values I believe our municipality is surely interested in. These bylaws also tend to attract investment and investors and encourage the business and building owners to take pride in their own buildings and frontage. The benefits to protecting our downtown businesses, stakeholders, economic growth, and citizens are endless and not exclusive to the value of the preservation of our very important heritage and history, something that most of the citizens that I talk to on a regular basis are very much interested in. And they take a lot of pride in our historical buildings and the nature of both Arthur and Mount Forest buildings. and Kenilworth, and would agree it's one of our most important features in Wellington North. So I'm hoping you might consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. I just like, through you, Mayor Lennox, I just like to make a comment. It was a comment that Erin had made in her letter regarding the tour that you did when you were in public school.
Yep.
Doing the drawings of the facades. And I was at a meeting a few years ago now, and the question was, if you had a visitor from out of the township, and what 6 places would you take them to, or would you do? I had a hard time with that. And after reading the letters that have been submitted and looking downtown, and the archives putting on the historical tags on the building, the plaques, I can honestly say now one of the first things I would do is take a walking tour up and down Main Street, go up one side and down the other, stop and read the plaques. There's a lot of history, a lot of stories that are there. And I had never heard of a mansard roof until I read one of the plaques. I had to go home and look it up to see what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So the people going up and down, if you're taking somebody up and down and you're just having a leisurely stroll, they might be interested in the building and they might go in and shop. They might stop and have a coffee on the way and have a relaxing time of it. So it's definitely an asset for our towns.
Yeah, I think you're probably aware that we're going to continue to have some of this discussion at tonight's meeting, so
Thank you.
you know, you're free to leave or you're free to stay and watch it do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Try not to skip over adopting minutes this time. We'll adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of council and the public meeting from July 14th. Recommendation is that the minutes of the regular meeting of council and the public meeting held on July 14th, 2025 be adopted as circulated. Could I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Rankin and Councillor Hearn, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. And we have business arising from the previous meeting of a notice of motion from Councillor Rankin. And the recommendation with that notice of motion is that council directs staff to bring a report on the feasibility of adopting a bylaw that will preserve the historical facades of the commercial buildings constructed before 1985 in the downtown core areas as set out in the zoning bylaw. Could I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Rankin moves it, obviously. Councillor Hearn's going to second it. And we'll open the floor for discussion. And Councillor Rankin, I'll give you first crack at it.
Through you, Mayor Lennox, I just had a point about the actual buildings themselves. If anybody has ever taken a look at the buildings, they're beautiful, they're tall. You don't find artwork in the brickwork and new buildings that they have there. Everyone is unique. You have some that there's maybe 3 windows on it. The outer ones have a flat brickwork around the tops of the window. And then the middle one might be a curved one. You have another building that has an arched one with a cathedral dome above that in brickwork. And then the next one would have just a round sort of a brick structure over top of the window. Everyone is different. And I really think that they are worth preserving. There are history. They tell a lot of stories. They're taking a lot of pride in the building of them. And as I said, you don't see buildings built like that nowadays. And I think it's up to our generation to try and preserve these wherever possible. And I have was given to me, in fact, Trina did, from the North Perth, and they have a downtown commercial design guidelines. It doesn't say it's heritage or historic. They just have a guideline to preserving the buildings and how they should be. Windows should not be obliterated the way we have in a building now, which it happens to be 1/3 of a block, which makes it sort of really stand out and not to its benefit. And so I think would like to see it pursuing some guidelines along those lines, either bylaw or strong guidelines, to try and preserve these buildings. And we do have some buildings, maybe not commercial buildings in every town, but we do have some buildings that may be considered for the preservation. And they have the charm. You driving into Mount Forest, particular, you can see all the buildings, especially the ones that are just north of Queen Street. They're front and center when you're driving down. You can't miss them. And I personally am not a native of Mount Forest. It's my choice to be here. And that is one of the things that has appealed to me to stay.
Other questions, comments? Councilor McKay?
And through you, Mayor. Yeah, I like this idea a lot. And thank you, Trina, for your time. Just at the Mount Forest fireworks, there's tons of people walking around, obviously, and one guy is just kind of got talking to, and he said the buildings reminded him of an old Western movie when you're on the east side of Highway 6 looking west towards the old buildings, and it looks like he's like, it looks one dimensional, like it looks like it's just a prop. But he said they're beautiful as well. So I think if there's something we can do, I don't know what the bylaw would look like. I kind of like the idea of a guideline. I know of heritage buildings that kind of handcuffs renovations, and I think it handcuffs people that own the building, but strong guidelines would be something I could get behind. I don't know what that would look like, but yeah, I do like the look of that, and yeah, what we can do to preserve it, I think I'll get behind for sure.
Other questions, Councilor Kern?
Yeah, I really like the idea. I live in a 175-year-old home. I do love history. There's bad that comes with that too, but anyway. The only thing maybe within it that gives me pause is the word bylaw. And I kind of, and a report would likely speak to all of that, but I do prefer kind of a positive approach, and I would be more wanting to reword that and remove bylaw and change it with approach or something like that. But that's it.
Okay. Councilor Burke.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank you, Trina, for your delegation and presentation, and also to all of the folks that sent letters or had them attached in the agenda. I think this is something that we've been talking about either at the Cultural Roundtable or tourism symposiums for some time. So now I think it's time that we step up and we do something, whether it's a bylaw, whether it's guidelines. I'm in full support of it. We need to preserve our heritage. I think about the young summer student that did a couple of tours, and I forget her name, and I do apologize for that, but she did a cemetery tour and a Main Street tour, and they were phenomenal. They were always booked to capacity. So I think we've got some real building blocks, if you will, to
Unintended?
no pun intended. To build on tourism, and to build on, what our historical societies do, what our cultural roundtable does for us. So I do support that. My question is while we are in the process of coming up with some type of guidelines, bylaw, or whatever that looks like, how do we stop building owners from doing something detrimental to a building such has been suggested? We all know the building that we're all talking about. How do we stop that from happening until we work through this process? And I sort of look to staff, whether that's part of the staff report. How do we get there?
Okay. Brooke can maybe help with that a little bit.
Through you, Mayor Lennox. So very good questions, and I would agree. There's some wonderful assets, historical assets that I think everyone recognizes are really valuable and everyone is looking for the best ways to promote and encourage that and continue that. I've heard a few different ideas tonight, which I think would be appropriate to be considered as part of a report coming back specifically related to facades. So in previous reports, we've addressed kind of the broader heritage designation process and some of the opportunities, constraints, things related to that. Typically, bylaws related to facades or any sort of improvements would sort of be sit under that larger heritage designation process. But things like heritage guidelines or design guidelines are another alternative that we can certainly consider and bring back in terms of recommendations and how that would fit in with our broader programs to promote facades that we have already under our community improvement plan. So a lot of communities will use kind of the carrots, the incentives, including providing dollars and funding to property owners who want to make heritage sympathetic improvements to their properties. The bylaw is really that stick and requires quite a large process, which we can also include some discussion and recommendation considerations upon if that's the direction that council wants to go in as well. So I think there's a suite of options that can be considered. I think staff can take this away and look at that report back to council in terms of what you can do as far as next steps go. And then lastly, I think in terms of the immediate response, perhaps it's really an education for those property owners right now to say, hey, do you realize that the site you own has a lot of special elements before you're making improvements, because currently it's their right to make improvements as they deem fit. There can be a lot of different opinions on what's aesthetically pleasing and things like that. But if there's some information we can provide that speaks to the heritage and the value of some of the existing facades and some of the, again, sympathetic improvements that could be made if they're looking to do that, as well as, opportunities to potentially get some funding for that through our facade program. I think that would be a great first step just to let those property owners know. Because again, the heritage designation process, if a bylaw is the direction that council wants to go in, is going to take some time. And so in the interim, what can we do to make sure that we're all kind of working in the same direction?
Further, Councilor?
Well, I mean, I appreciate all of that information. I guess let me rephrase the question. So you can't stop somebody from getting a building permit. But in the interim, so we're suggesting more education. If somebody tomorrow came to Darren and said, I'm going to change the front of my building, and it's one of those historical buildings that we really don't want to see the facade changed, how would we address that? Through education?
I think through you, Mayor Lennox, our first preference would be through education. I don't believe we could, for example, do a moratorium on building permits. We could, I think, staff are the understanding that that's not a tool that we have, although I think as part of any future report, we would maybe get a legal opinion to that effect, just to make sure that our understanding is correct. But I think it's really about, providing some information, because I think my guess is the majority of the building owners want to make the best use of that property and want to see the value increase. And if heritage preservation and again, improvements that are sort of in line with the nature of those buildings is something that they can do, it's probably a good option for them to consider.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Rankin.
Thank you. I'm just following up on Councillor Burke's because the last issue of one that has done this did not apply to the township for any change in their facade. They didn't ask for a grant, and they didn't ask for a facade grant, and they didn't ask for a loan. They just went ahead and did it on their own. So I think what maybe Councillor Burke is saying is, how do we stop people or owners from being able to do that until we get some guidelines or bylaw in place. I mean, they may see the council now and council meeting now and say, oh, well, we better get this done in a hurry if we want, because it may be cheaper than trying to preserve the facade.
You try this one. I think what Brooke is trying to say is that we can get a legal opinion to confirm it, but we don't believe that we currently have the authority to stop somebody from modifying their building pending a potential bylaw. I would also add a comment with this, and I love old architecture too. But if preserving it is a community good, then we shouldn't be putting all the onus and the cost associated with that on the property owners. We should be prepared to contribute tax dollars to preserving that. So I think that needs to be part of this discussion as well. That we better put our money where our mouth is if we really believe this is something that community wants. And I like the idea. I just think there's some things that we have to go through, and I really am appreciative of the fact that we're requesting a report on the feasibility, because we can start to unpack some of these things about what's a fair way to request this of those property owners. And we're going to have to go through things. So who decides which property is in, which property is out? Who decides what the criteria is for what modification is permissible and what isn't? Like, these are some details we got to figure out before we can start saying, no, you can't, or yes, you can. And I don't think we're there. And I think there's a lot of work that's going to have to go into this to get us to that point, because we got to figure out what it is we're preserving, what buildings fall into that category, who's going to decide, how we're going to decide how it's done, what's appropriate. And if there's an additional burden on those property owners because of that, then we need to be prepared to help them accomplish that. Now, we have examples in the downtown, and I think of the Coburn Insurance Building as a great example, where it had just a paint coating on the exterior of the brick, and they spent a whack of money sandblasting it, sealing it, cleaning it up, and it looks great. And I'm really glad that we have property owners that take pride in their property and make it look good. Really, what we're trying to do is make sure everybody does. And I think we need to be thoughtful and a little bit careful about how we do that, so that we don't create a whole bunch of other unintended consequences. So I'm in favor of us proceeding with this. I think we need to be careful about what we can and can't prohibit or stop, because people who own those properties have private property rights too. So if we're going to infringe on those, then we need to figure out how we can do that in a fair and equitable way. So, any other questions or comments? Okay.
I just have a procedural question. Do you want to do a friendly amendment to the resolution where it will read, council directs staff to bring a report on the feasibility of adopting a bylaw, policy, or guideline, rather than just the word bylaw?
Councilor Rankin?
Because if you direct us on a bylaw, that's all we're going to come back with. But if you make it broader, maybe it will be a policy, maybe it will be a guideline.
If it's only, I'm sorry, I have a question. Sorry, I have a question. If it's only a guideline, is there going to be any teeth in it to address anybody that, after it's already implemented, this guideline, is there going to be any teeth in it to address somebody that will deliberately come along, do what they want, and ask for forgiveness later? Would a guideline do that? A bylaw could, but
A guideline is not going to do that. I mean, the bylaw is the only avenue to do that, and we're probably going to get into heritage designation to accomplish that, and all that goes with that. And I think, to my comment earlier, we better be prepared to put our money where our mouth is if we're going to do that.
yeah, I'm quite willing to do that.
So I did see nods about the friendly amendment, Karen.
Yep.
From both the mover and the seconder. So as amended, do we have any final discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're on to items for consideration. And pulled out for discussion, we have 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, and 7B. Well, then let's deal with everything else. Did I miss something?
I don't think that needs to be pulled anymore. Those were,
7B.
yeah, those are the additional letters, and Councillor Rankin wanted to mention the agreement that North Perth has, and she's mentioned that already.
Okay.
So that's up to you if you want to pull it or not.
No, that's fine. I think I've said what I want to say. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'll just go through that again. 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A. I should be able to remember that, shouldn't I? Okay, let's deal with everything else. We have a recommendation that all items listed under items for consideration on the July 28, 2025 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll move on to 2A. And the recommendation there is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive for information report CDO 2025-11, being the building permit review for the month of June 2025. Moved by Councillor Hearn, seconded by Councillor Rankin. Open the floor for questions or comments. Councillor Rankin.
Through you, Mayor Lennox. I was just wondering why the residential building had 15 permits issued, but 16 units were created.
Through you, Mayor Lennox. Thank you, Councillor Rankin, for the question. So that category of building permit includes decks, carports, a kitchen renovation, as well as townhouses, apartment buildings, new houses. So, for example, in June, we had 15 building permits. Some of them were houses that were one residential unit. A couple of them were 3-unit apartment buildings, and the rest were essentially decks and carports and kitchen renovations. Welcome.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Move on to 3A. This is a recommendation with regard to live barn, and it reads: Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report C and ED 2025-28, being report on live barn, and that council authorizes the mayor and clerk to sign the bylaw to authorize a 3-year agreement with Live Barn Inc. And further, the council directs staff to work with local minor sports organizations to promote the streaming service. The mover, moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke. Questions, comments?
Go ahead, Steve. Okay, thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox, thank you, Mandy, for the report. Just a couple of questions with regards to this. The service is optional for each group to decide whether their activities are recorded. How will that be promoted? Is that promoted through us? Is that promoted through Live Barn proper? And the education and marketing campaign, will that be facilitated by us or Live Barn? And the reason I ask that question is I do have some concerns with regards to privacy and addressing those concerns. So if it's something that Live Barn is going to do for us, I'd like to be aware of the timing of those meetings, just so that I have a better understanding of the service and how they're going to mitigate some of those concerns.
Go ahead, Mandy.
Thank you, Mayor Lennox. Through you. Great question, Councillor Burke. So we're actually meeting on Wednesday night with the local user groups for our ICE allocation meeting. And one of the topics will include a discussion around Live Barn and what the application will look like for each group. The default will be to have the cameras off unless a user group requests that they be turned on. So if a minor hockey association says we want the cameras turned on for our teams, then we will turn those cameras on and not black out that time frame. So further to this, staff will be trained on how to set those blackout times when the cameras will not be turned on. So for example, we might choose to black out the cameras from 6 a.m. until 4 p.m. daily so that it doesn't get triggered to turn on inadvertently. As it relates to marketing and promotion, we will be working with the local user groups. Let's say one of our skating clubs does not want their sport to be streamed, then we would work with them not to have it streamed. If alternatively the other skating group did want it to be streamed, then we would work with them and their parents to promote it directly to those families. So part of signing up, LiveBarn will supply us with all of the A-frames, A-frame posters saying, you're entering in a facility that does have live streaming. We would have posters on the doors so that people are aware when they enter the facility that the streaming is taking place. You have to sign up in order to access the streaming. And then there is also an opportunity to set a privacy pin. So let's say, for an example, a U6 hockey team with minor hockey has requested to have a privacy pin in place, or just minor hockey in general has requested a privacy pin. We can work with minor hockey to set a pin number that when you log into the streaming device, you can't automatically view the game. You need to enter that privacy pin associated with that game or team.
Okay. Thank you.
I should have gone first. Through you, Mayor Lennox. Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for parents and grandparents or, aunts and uncles that can't make a game. And then I had one question about, would every game be live streamed? So you've already answered that. My question, I guess I have two, will parents have to sign a consent to have their children video on a live stream, or how does that work? And does LiveBarn do that, or the township, or how does that work, Mandy?
Yep. Through you, Mayor Lennox. So the consent for streaming would not be written from my awareness. It would be posted. So entering into the facility, you're in a public space, you could be streamed. Similar to a lot of parents have cell phones, they may stream to YouTube or Facebook or something like that. So it's a similar public space streaming avenue. However, if minor hockey reached out to the township and said, we have somebody who does not want to be streamed and we would like to honor that request, then we would work with them to black out or put that privacy pin in place.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Just one last one. It says that the township might be able to receive up to 20% of the revenue. Just wondering how that revenue is supposed to be generated. I guess obviously maybe advertisements, or how does that play out?
Yep. Thank you, Councillor McCabe, through you, Mayor Lennox. So the revenue, when we first sign up with LiveBarn, we will be given a promo code, whether that's Wellington North, LiveBarn, whatever the promo code is, that'll be posted on all of the signage as well. So if you're interested in signing up for LiveBarn, you would go to the app, download LiveBarn, you would punch in Wellington North's promo code. You would receive 10% off of your subscription. So those range between $25 for basic and I believe $35 for a premium plan per month. And the township would receive 20% of that revenue generated ongoing. So it's not just for the first month or the first 2 months. Township will receive that 20% revenue as it moves forward.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Hearn.
Question again for Mandy. If I understand you correctly, the default will be off. So this means with LiveBarn, we cannot really get into a situation like just happened in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge, where they accidentally recorded a day camp and then pulled all their cameras. So this can't happen in Wellington North?
A great question, Councillor Hearn, again through you, Mayor Lennox. So I actually reached out to LiveBarn to receive their official statement on that exact situation. And if I might be able to, I'd just like to share that with you. So their official statement from the Chief Operating Officer is Live Barn is aware of the situation in Waterloo and Kitchener and is actively investigating. We take privacy very seriously and we intervened immediately once we were notified. Our preliminary investigation indicates this appears to be the result of a scheduling error and that there was no footage downloaded or shared. In addition, the live stream was disabled immediately upon being notified and there is currently no footage available. Our streaming schedules are managed by each venue, so in this case it would be the Township, or their affiliated local sports organizations. In this case, an incorrect schedule was created. With thousands of venues and diverse sports content, accidental human error can occur. We are constantly reviewing our protocols, and in light of this situation, we will be looking at implementing further safeguards to prevent further issues, future issues. And then we also want to clarify that these two incidents were isolated and unrelated to one another. We will continue to work with all of our partners involved to protect against this moving forward. So that's the statement from the Chief Operating Officer. There is certainly a possibility of human error occurring and a blackout time not being set properly. However, Live Barn is working to create those safeguards so that this does not happen in the future.
Any other questions? Councillor Rankin?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox, I just want to clarify then that if one child out of a, say, hockey team signs a privacy agreement through safety for their own well-being, will that team will just then black out all their games?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lennox. If the organization, so if we were to work with minor hockey, for example, and there was one child that minor hockey was supportive of not streaming any of those videos, then we would work with minor hockey to not record or put a privacy pin in place. An alternative option would be that we could record it separately. The coach could download it and share it to those parents that are on the allowed list. So there are some safeguards in place in relation to that, but it just kind of depends on a case-by-case basis and the township working with the local user group and what it is that they would like to do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I just have a couple, Mandy. So this is truly a live stream. There's no time delay. Is that correct?
Correct. That's my understanding. Live stream.
Okay. So I guess the question relates to your comment from the Chief Operating Officer. Are we capable of linking this to our booking system so that, when team XYZ is coming on the schedule, it's automatically dealt with and we're not creating a manual interface here for this? Or I guess I'm really concerned about that potential for human error. Schedules change, minor hockey has to adapt. Our staff are busy, keeping the ice prepared. Like how can you assure me that we have a foolproof system in place?
Yeah, great question, Mayor Lennox. So I would like to provide you all the assurances in the world, but I want to make sure that I have all the facts before I do that. So we are going to be undertaking training with Live Barn if the agreement is signed moving forward from tonight's meeting. Staff would undertake training as to how to set up those schedules. At this point, I'm not educated enough in how that works. With that said, they did provide us with additional logins. So we would be able to provide those to the Minor Hockey Association presidents, the skate club presidents, and if Ringette wanted to participate as well, we would be able to provide those logins so they could also confirm the scheduling of the live streaming. My understanding is that when it does live stream, there is an opportunity to download after the fact. So if you subscribe to a certain team, you would be able to download that video after the fact.
Okay. And I guess the other question is around the, in the event that something happened due to human error, and somebody's privacy rights are breached, where does the legal liability rest?
Again, another great question, Mayor Lennox. I don't have an answer for that. I can certainly look into it with Livebarn and see what they have in regards to an answer for that question.
Okay. And I guess the other question that I have then is this expected to come back to council before we would implement, or what's the intention here?
So we can certainly bring the agreement back to council before implementing to get further clarification on those questions. It sounds like it's about a 6 to 8 week turnaround to get Livebarn implemented. So if it were to be signed tonight, we would have it implemented for mid-September. If we wait until August 11th council meeting, that's fine. It'll push it back another couple of weeks, but it will provide council with the answers that we're seeking tonight.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Anybody need me to read the recommendation again?
Just procedurally, the recommendation goes on to say, like you're receiving the report and that the council authorizes the mayor and clerk to sign the bylaw. So maybe you want to, and the council directs staff to bring a bylaw to a future meeting.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm seeing nods, so. The mover and seconder for that was McCabe and Burke.
Yes.
They're nodding their heads, so we'll do that as a friendly amendment. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Karen, for that. We'll move on to the vendor check register, item 4A. A recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the vendor check register report dated July 21st, 2025. Could I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor Rankin and Councilor Burke, thank you. Any questions or comments on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 5A. And this is the Tri-Fire Services Quarter 2 report. A recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the Tri-Fire Services Maple, Minto, and Wellington North Quarter 2 report. Moved by Councilor Hearn, seconded by Councilor McCabe. Questions, comments? Councilor McCabe?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lennox. Thanks, Khalees, for this Tri-Fire Service report. I know it only goes to the end of June, but the amount of call stats is quite overwhelming. It's I don't know how you guys do it, but you're doing a great job. One of the reasons I did want to bring this up, though, was just on the fireworks weekend, the firefighters breakfast on the Saturday morning was I don't know how many people were there all together in total, but I know Sean had said that by 9:30 there was over 900 people, and then we went till 12. So and in the midst of that there was a fire call to Arthur, so some of the firefighters had to rip down help out with the Wellington North fire, or with the Arthur firehouse as well. So wanted to say kudos to all the team there, Khalees, and just a great bunch of firefighters that not only protect us but also feed us and do so much for this community. So thank you.
Through you, Mayor Lennox. Thank you. Yeah, I think they served 1,229 was their final count. So
Wow. I think they did 1,200 last year, and we were wondering about the count when I was still there.
it was a busy day.
It was. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to the George Kirkness Drain report. Recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report CLK 2025-007, being a report on the George Kirkness Drain, and further the council directs staff to enter into discussions with Robinson Farm Drainage regarding interest on their deposit of $3,065.65. And I get a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councilor Burke and Councilor McCabe. Thank you. Questions, comments? Councilor McCabe.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lennox. I guess this is probably for Jerry and maybe Brooke as well. I'm not 100% sure, but so the MTO kind of effectively delayed this project, it seems like, and then Robinson has withdrawn. So where does that leave us now? And then when will this drain be retendered? And I guess that depends, whenever it's retendered, I guess then obviously the completion date will be pushed back. Like, would it be this year or, and then I have a follow-up as well.
So Thomas Jackson, who's our
perfect.
drain engineer, is right there with his hand up.
Sorry, thanks, Thomas. I didn't see you there.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor McCabe. And through you, Mayor, to answer the first question, it leaves us in, I've taken over this drain report as the engineer. So that leaves us with, I've had ongoing discussions with MTO. We will have the permit by the couple weeks, I think. I don't think I know we'll get the permit in a couple of weeks. There was some miscommunication between MTO and the geotech and the engineer. So the permit is forthcoming and the retendering will be done in 2 phases and that'll be done in September. So the plan would be to have construction of phase 1, which would be the MTO road crossing, done in the winter, and then the drainage construction being done in the spring.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So then with that, Thomas, everything that the MTO needs is, I guess, will be satisfied at that point then? So there's
Yep.
not another delay?
Yep, through you, Mayor. It is all satisfied. There was a problem with the geotech report that has been revised and MTO has accepted that.
Okay. One more little follow.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. And again, through you, Mayor Lennox. So with regards to the interest that was collected on Robinson's money, so who actually owns that money?
So I can speak to that. So this came in when they submitted their tender, they submitted their deposit, and we never did cash it because the project never got off the ground. So we didn't collect the interest,
Okay.
but we were holding $30,000 of Robinson's money. So they weren't able to use that money either.
Right. So where does that leave us then?
So just to be clear, they're billing us for that interest, correct?
They're asking for us
Right.
to pay for the 2 years.
Right.
So the first year the project was delayed, they did ask to back out of the project. That's correct, right, Thomas? About a year ago, about this time.
Yes, that's correct.
And they decided to stay in because, the permit was imminent. But after 2 years, it seems reasonable that they would ask for their money back. I'm not sure about the entire amount, which is why we're asking you to direct staff to negotiate with them. And Thomas, there's something about once the project goes through, any increased costs. Can you just speak to that? So I'm not misspeaking about it.
Yeah, yes, through you, Mayor. So they based their interest calculations on the 17 months that their tender was held. Their start for construction, so that 17 months is January 2024 till July 2025. Their scheduled construction start was after July 15th, 2024. So the check was held for an additional year beyond the start of construction. That comes out to about $1,000 difference in interest from my calculations. For their interest calculations, they used 6.2%, which I guess they have from their bank. And to talk to the additional costs, I am deeming this an MTO cost under a special assessment under Section 26 of the under Section 26 of the Drainage Act because of the delay that has been caused. So that interest charge will be charged back to MTO.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. So, all right, perfect. Thank you, Thomas. And thank you, Karen.
Any other questions or comments? So just make sure I understand the recommendation here. We're asking staff enter into discussions and that hopefully that discussion will sort out what's an appropriate amount of interest to allocate to this, given the details of the situation, and that it was somewhat up to them how long we held that money as well.
It was, I would think though it would be prudent once we negotiate with them to bring it back to council for a decision. So we're not asking for the authority to decide. We're just asking to negotiate, and then, the decision will come back to council.
And then, sorry, then
Go ahead.
that price or that interest, say the township pays it, then we'll charge that back to the MTO. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what Thomas is saying.
Okay.
yes.
All right, thank you.
Along with any additional construction costs that goes with MTO's requirements, correct?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, that's correct.
Good. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I guess that's it for items for consideration. So that brings us to notice of motion. Any notice of motion this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to community group meeting program report. Does anybody have anything they'd like to report on tonight? Councillor McCabe?
I thought you were going to go first. Thank you. And through you, Mayor Lennox, I've had a Roma meeting the last, I guess, two weeks ago. It went well. The AMO executive director retired, and his name is Brian. And then on Friday, Lindsay Jones, who was the head of policy for AMO and Roma, was appointed as the new executive director. So she takes up that position as of Friday. There was a Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority meeting that I was at 2 weeks ago, and then tomorrow is their 75th anniversary, and Darren and I are going to attend on Wellington North and Minto's behalf. So,
Anybody have anything else they'd like to report on? Councillor Rankin?
Through you, Mayor Lennox, the farmer's market, it's coming along quite well. Last weekend, they had free candy floss for all the kids and the odd adult. And
Kids at heart?
I didn't partake. Look good though. And this coming week, I believe it's food, so I'm not quite sure what they're going to have there. So we'll see. And there's lots of nice fresh vegetables. It's great.
So still waiting for numbers from the Mount Forest Fireworks Festival. So I will bring those back. But also just wanted to touch on the hospital gala. Numbers are out that they raised $175,000 for the gala. So they exceeded their expectations. So that's great. And that's about all I have to say.
Okay. Councillor McCabe?
sorry, I was just going to, through you, Mayor, I was going to ask Councillor Rankin how busy it was on the fireworks festival for the Wellington North Farmers Market. I didn't get a chance to go down that far, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, the market was really busy, and the hospital auxiliary did the best that they have at a fireworks festival before. So we were very pleased.
Excellent. Good to hear.
And I can comment on that as well. So I was talking to one of the regular vendors that provides baked goods. And she was telling me that it took her 45 minutes to load because it is her busiest market day. And the aquatics committee also had their swag down there. And we sold several items and had a lot of really good comments about what we were doing and where we are with the fundraising goal so far.
Anything else? I'll just add of course, fireworks festival is a big deal. I finally got all the ribs digested from judging the ribs from Rib Fest. It was an excellent offering. And then, of course, as Councillor McCabe alluded to, yeah, I helped serve with the firefighters as well. And boy, that's quite an undertaking to serve that many people breakfast. And then I was participating in the soapbox derby, or helping with the soapbox derby on the Sunday, and it was hot, and so was the racing. So there was some stiff out of town competition. So it's quite impressive to see these young kids and the amount of effort they put into their machines. With that, we'll move on to, I think, bylaws is next, is it not?
So we're not going to pass bylaw 46,
Okay,
which is the live barn.
right. Okay, so we have a recommendation that bylaw number 44, 47, 48 -2025 be read and passed. Moved by Councillor Hearn, seconded by Councillor Rankin. Any questions or comments on those? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to our cultural moment. Ted Arnott tonight.
The Wellington North Cultural Roundtable presents A Cultural Moment, Ted Arnott. Ted Arnott was born in Fergus in 1963 to Warren and Jessie Arnott. He grew up in Arthur, where his family was in the heavy construction industry. Educated at local public schools, Ted later attended Wilfrid Laurier University. There he completed the requirements for a Bachelor of Arts, Political Science, and a Diploma of Business Administration, all while working summers and part-time during the school year. After finishing university, Ted worked as the executive assistant to MPP Jack Johnson until Mr. Johnson's retirement from provincial politics in 1990. He was first elected to the Ontario Legislature in September 1990 as MPP for Wellington. He was re-elected 8 more times. Once the youngest MPP in the Ontario PC caucus, Arnott's tenure in the legislature made him the longest-serving MPP following retirement of Jim Wilson in 2022. During his time as an MPP, Ted always sought to put his constituents first. Serving on both the opposition and government sides of the House over the years, he always demonstrated a willingness to work across party lines to get things done, including introducing the very first bill in the history of the Ontario legislature that was co-sponsored by members from different parties. He has advocated successfully for many major infrastructure projects in his riding, and many of his private members' bills and resolutions have been passed into law or adopted as government policy, such as his amendment to the Highway Traffic Act allowing volunteer firefighters to use a flashing green light on their personal vehicles when responding to an emergency. In 2018, he was elected as the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, a position he held until 2025, becoming the longest-serving Speaker in Ontario's history. Arnott chose not to seek re-election in the 2025 provincial election, leaving behind a legacy of public service and legislative impact. Following Arnott's announcement, fellow MPPs of all political stripes acknowledged his contributions to the province and noted his exemplary example of public service. As fellow PC MPP Lisa MacLeod put it, Ted is a perennial gentleman, and unlike those who will be but a footnote in Ontario's history book, he will own a chapter, and glowingly so. A perfect testament to a proud son of Wellington North.
Just what you wanted to be, Steve. Wallpaper. Okay, we'll move on to our confirming bylaw. And that is bylaw number 49-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North at its regular meeting held on July 28th, 2025, be read and passed. Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hearn. All those in favor? It's carried. And I'll just draw your attention to the meeting notices and so on. Before we adjourn, the farmers market, of course, is every Saturday till the 27th of September on Parkside Drive at 8:30 to noon. Mount Forest Chamber of Commerce meets tomorrow at 5 p.m. Our next regular council meeting is the 11th of August at 2 p.m. Mount Forest BIA meets the following day, the 12th at 8 a.m. Arthur Chamber of Commerce meets the 13th. And the Cultural Roundtable next meeting is the 14th of August. So that said, we'll move to adjournment. And the recommendation is that the regular council meeting of July 28th, 2025 be adjourned at 8:54 p.m. Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor McCabe. All those in favor? That's carried. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.